Hi, welcome back. In this week's chapter assignment, you'll continue to learn more about writing and developing a paragraph. This chapter takes a closer look at what makes a good topic sentence, how to make the body sentences support your main point, and then what a concluding sentence should look like. Let's start with your topic sentence. A good topic sentence contains a single main point. It has a narrow focus. It's unique, meaning that it doesn't state something obvious. And it has a confident tone, meaning that it doesn't start with words like I think or I hope or this paper is about. Let's take a closer look at each of these points. Here's an example of a topic sentence that a student might write. Daily exercise can keep the mind alert and reduce blood pressure. Now, this example is fine in regard to grammar and construction, but if you notice, the student has combined two main points in the same sentence. Daily exercise can keep the mind alert, and daily exercise can reduce blood pressure. The student would be better off to use these sentences in two different paragraphs. Here's another example. Most of our garbage ends up in landfills, and food waste is a problem. The sentence is fine in grammatical terms, but it's trying to make two different points. Most of our garbage ends up in landfills, and food waste is a problem. Again, the student would have been better off to use these sentences in two different paragraphs. Another thing to keep in mind when writing a topic sentence is to make sure you keep a narrow focus. Now, a topic can be about anything you like: sports, science, politics, family, education. What's important is that you know how to narrow these big topics down before you start writing. For example, a topic like good health is much too large to write about in one essay, much less one paragraph. These more narrow topics like fighting a cold, taking vitamins, or getting enough sleep would be much better choices. They're still related to the larger topic of good health, but are more manageable for writing a paragraph or an essay. How about the topic of crime? Again, much too large to write about in a paragraph or essay. However, these more narrow topics like teen shoplifting, safety in college dorms, or locking your car doors would be much better choices. Another characteristic of a good topic sentence is that the sentence is unique, meaning that it doesn't just state something that is obvious or something that everyone would agree with. For example, pollution is a big problem in this country. Well, this might be a true statement, but I think most of your readers would probably already know this, and I doubt that you could find anyone to disagree with this statement. Instead, try to find something in particular about your topic that provides the reader with some useful information, maybe something that not everyone knows, like 40% of the lakes in America are too polluted for fishing. Here's another example of a topic sentence that is far too obvious. Poor eating habits can be blamed for obesity in this country. I'd be surprised if there is anyone in this country who hasn't heard this statement before. However, a more unique statement like, more than 1/3 of all children in the U.S. are overweight or obese, is probably not a fact that everyone is familiar with, and therefore this would make a much better topic sentence. Finally, a good topic sentence has a tone of confidence, and that means you need to avoid writing weak sentences that start with the words I think, or I hope, or in this paper I will. For example, I think a college tuition increase would hurt most students at our school. Now, this is a grammatically correct sentence, but the words I think at the beginning tend to weaken the author's credibility. A better approach to writing this sentence would be to simply leave out the words I think. A college tuition increase would hurt most students at our school. Do you see the difference here? Here's another example. In this paper, I will explain how sugar is the leading cause of obesity in the world. When you start a sentence with words like, in this paper I will explain, You're not only stating the obvious, but you're also weakening the strength of your sentence simply because you're including a lot of words that don't need to be there. A better sentence here would be simply, sugar is the leading cause of obesity in the world. Now let's take a closer look at the body sentences and see what role they play in the construction of a paragraph. Of course, all of the body sentences should be related to your topic sentence. If not, you'll probably need to move those sentences to another paragraph. Body sentences should help clarify your topic sentence for the reader. And they can do that by using supporting details and facts. If you provide enough supporting details, then your body sentences should accomplish the job of clarifying your topic sentence or proving a point. Just keep in mind that the body of your paragraph should always be working to support what you say in the first sentence. Finally, let's take a closer look at your concluding sentence. A concluding sentence should remind readers of your main point. However, try not to simply repeat your topic sentence from the beginning of the paragraph. Rephrase your main point using different words and expressions. Also, a good concluding sentence might include an additional thought or perspective on your main topic. Let's take a look at an example. This writer's topic sentence reads, 40% of the lakes in America are too polluted for fishing. A concluding sentence for this paragraph might be, with nearly 1/2 of America's lakes being unsuitable for fishing, pollution can't be ignored. Notice how the concluding sentence reminds the reader of the topic, but does this by rephrasing the sentence and using different words. Also notice how the author includes an additional thought and perspective on the topic. Pollution can't be ignored. Here's another example where a student is writing about a college tuition increase. Her topic sentence reads, an increase in college tuition would hurt most students enrolled at our school. Now, a concluding sentence for this paragraph might be, students hurt by tuition increases might find it difficult to continue their education. Notice how the concluding sentence does a nice job of relating back to the topic sentence, but also adds an additional thought. Students might find it difficult to continue their education. Be sure to read Chapter 3 in your textbook to learn more about topic sentences, body sentences, and a concluding sentence. For this week's reading assignment, I have an essay by Sherry Turkle. Turkle is a psychologist and a professor at MIT, and she's the author of a book called Alone Together: Why We Expect More from Technology and Less from Each Other. Turkle is interested in how new technology like cell phones and social media is affecting the way people communicate. She gives a fairly stern warning about the dangers of losing face-to-face conversations as we become more and more accustomed to texting rather than talking. Turkle claims that even though the technology might make people feel more connected, it's leaving us more alone and increasingly more uncomfortable with intimacy. I've also included a link to a video where Turkle gives a presentation at TED Talks about her book. As usual, I have an essay response worksheet for you to complete. As you read through the essay, try to identify the main points that Turkle is making, and then look for whatever supporting details she provides to back up her claims. If you don't think Turkle provides enough details to convince you of her argument, be sure and mention this in your evaluation. In this week's writing workshop, you'll be writing what's called a description paragraph. As you'll see in your textbook, a description paragraph uses details that appeal to the senses, like sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. This worksheet will help you explore these kinds of details and then put them together in a complete paragraph. I've included a sample of a description paragraph that I wrote, which you can see by clicking the See My Sample link below. In Chapter 5 of your textbook, you'll find some more examples of a description paragraph and a helpful guide for organizing the details of your paragraph. The grammar workshop for this week is all about something called parallelism. Now don't let the word scare you. This is just a fancy name for making your sentences sound more balanced and organized, especially in regard to a sentence that includes a series of items separated by commas. I'll talk more about this in just a moment. The worksheet includes a simple technique for identifying errors in parallelism and then provides you several options for correcting the problem. Now, as I mentioned, some of the sentences you'll write in a paragraph might include what's called a series of items, where each item is separated by a comma. For example, the ball rolled across the floor, over the rug, and down the steps. The items in the series are across the floor, over the rug, down the steps. In grammatical terms, this sentence is parallel. And that's because each item in the series has a similar structure that uses prepositions. Now, if you remember from grammar school, a preposition is a word that describes a location. Notice the prepositions used in this sentence: across, over, down. The consistency here helps keep the structure of the sentence parallel. Now let's take a look at what can go wrong when you break that consistency and the sentence is no longer parallel. The ball rolled across the floor, the rug, going down the steps. Notice how this sentence sounds awkward and clunky. That's because the sentence is no longer parallel. Can you spot where the problem is? Sometimes the error can be a little tricky to see. That's why I like to use this simple method for identifying faulty parallelism in a sentence. First, identify the leading phrase of the sentence. In this example, the leading phrase is "the ball rolled." Now place the sentence lead in front of each item and read the combined phrases together, like this. The ball rolled across the floor. The ball rolled the rug. The ball rolled going down the steps. Do some of these phrases sound awkward to you? If this had been a parallel sentence, each of these phrases would have sounded much like a complete sentence. Because they don't, this tells us that some of the items may need to be changed. In this example, the first item sounds fine to me. However, the second and third items do not. And that's because they're missing a preposition. So let's rewrite the phrases using prepositions and see how they sound. The ball rolled across the floor. The ball rolled over the rug. The ball rolled down the steps. That sounds much better. Now let's put the sentence back together and see how it sounds. The ball rolled across the floor, over the rug, and down the steps. Another common error in parallelism is to write items that use inconsistent tense. That means some of the words in this series might refer to the past, while others refer to the present or future. For example, last year Andy moved to Marshalltown, enrolls in school, and starts a new job. Can you spot the problem here? If we read the sentence lead with each item, it's a little easier to identify the inconsistency. Last year, Andy moved to Marshalltown. Last year, Andy enrolls in school. Last year, Andy starts a new job. Notice how some of the phrases are referring to both the past and the present. That's an error in parallelism, which is fairly easy to fix simply by changing the tense so everything matches. Last year, Andy moved to Marshalltown. Last year, Andy enrolled in school. Last year, Andy started a new job. Now let's put the sentence back together. Last year, Andy moved to Marshalltown, enrolled in school, and started a new job. Another way to create parallelism in a sentence is to be consistent in the use of gerunds. Again, if you remember from grammar school, a gerund is the ing that comes at the end of a word, like walking, talking, sleeping, thinking. In the next example, let's see if we can correct an error in parallelism by using the gerund. This summer Andy is playing baseball, works at Walmart, and taking 2 classes. Just as we did earlier, let's identify the sentence lead and then pair it up with each item to see how it sounds. This summer Andy is playing baseball. This summer Andy works at Walmart. This summer Andy is taking 2 classes. Notice how the first and last examples sound fine, but the second example, this summer Andy works at Walmart, sounds awkward and broken. We can easily correct this parallelism error simply by adding a gerund, like this. This summer Andy is working at Walmart. Now let's put the sentence back together. This summer Andy is playing baseball, working at Walmart, and taking 2 classes. That's much better. The worksheet I've provided you in this week's module will give you a chance to practice identifying errors in parallelism and then use the techniques I've just described to correct the problem. Well, that's it for this week. Let me know if you have any questions about the assignments. Have a good week, and I'll see you next time.